So more about the Gallatin County history, right? And we're on the judge executives. And I got a story with Marie Helms that happened during Zubay's term. So, so what happened was that a jury acquitted her January 4, 2005 of criminal trespass, and then she filed a lawsuit claiming that the criminal case was prosecuted against the plaintiff by defendants in an attempt to intimidate her from speaking out against matters of public concern. The complaint names Zubeidi and Baker as defendants, both individually in their official capacities with the county. Also names Donnie Gould, City of Warsaw Police Chief Travis Simpson, Mayor of Warsaw, and Officer Brent Caldwell, City of Warsaw's defendants, both individually and officially. District Court granted summary judgment for defendants on Helms' federal claims and dismissed her related state claims without prejudice. Helms timely appealed. Would anybody know what happened with that payroll tax? Does anybody know? I mean, she protested it. It was a good protest, and she fought back. And, I'm very impressed with her. I'm also very impressed with Clarence Davis. He looked like he got in a little bind, with this Marvin Smith guy. And Marvin Smith guy, like, maybe he thought he was actually doing good. Maybe, they charge him with, alcohol intoxication, but you're driving 120 miles an hour, and he didn't crash, so it couldn't have been that intoxicated. If he was, it's alleged. But he goes into Gallatin County Courthouse, and he files an assault charge on him, which, he assaulted him, hit him on the head with a flashlight, and then he says that he was breaking his official capacities. So so that's like, just, what, you're going to throw a lawsuit on me, I'm going to throw a lawsuit on you. And that's sort of what Marie Helms did. They want to charge her with something, I'm going to charge you with something. And we'll see how that turned out. I don't think anything happened. They timely appealed, so there's they sued. I don't know if she won it or not. But, that incident did happen during Zubeidi's. Something else I found in Clarence Davis, he's versus Clifford S. Lilly. On April 25th, 2012, so filed a lawsuit against Clifford S. Lilly. Clarence Davis versus Kentucky Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance. There's an insurance dispute. 1990. Okay, so Gallatin County Public Library opened in 1978 with less than 8,000 books housed in a remodeled laundromat, West Pearl Street. Library is beautiful, it's got books and all this other stuff, and basically all that story is that Judge Clarence Davis was there, and he supported a vision of a free public library in Gallatin County. And it's due to their efforts today. Gallatin County enjoys one of the most beautiful libraries in the Commonwealth, one that served as a model to many others in the area. I don't know. I haven't felt comfortable in Gallatin County Library. I remember having to, it's like they don't want you there, It's just like, what are you doing here? I'm researching, I'm reading. What are you doing here? Gossiping? And so he was there, supportive of libraries. That's good, right? Supporting libraries. Attempts to reach NASCAR representatives and Gallatin County Judge Executive Clarence Davis for comment were unsuccessful. Let's talk about the racetrack coming in. Mr. Carroll, the man who helped develop the Turfway business and commercial area near his thoroughbred racetrack off I-75, said that's where the second half of the plan gets tough. October 23rd, 2007, Carroll County Water District versus White Horse Development versus Gallatin County Water District. Mr. Smith will testify about the current boundary of the district with the 1983 and 1998 boundary changes. He will establish for the record the physical boundaries of the district utilizing maps and charts previously filed with the commission. So the water districts are fighting each other, and he had to come in and testify. Clarence Davis did. To the area of the county that was not served with water, so he had to testify that some of the people in Gallatin County didn't have water. He will explain to the commission that when the district boundary was enlarged to include a portion of Gallatin County by consent of Carroll and Gallatin, Judge Executive District Managing Board was expanded to include voting members from Gallatin County. So Gallatin County should have a choice in their water decisions. Fox 19 investigates. County executive violating the judge's orders. September 23rd, 2013 by Matthew Norton. Earlier this year, Cersei says he met with McFarland, asking the judge executive who oversees the county's 911 dispatch system as part of his duties to take his competitor off the list. They said it wasn't fair, but is it really fair to monopolize like that? I don't see how that's fair. And they said they researched and they thought it was okay. After not hearing back, Searcy went to court. His attorney convinced Kentucky Circuit Court Judge James Schran to order McFarland to take the competitor off the list and to follow the county's own guidelines when it came to approving the big rig tow truck operations. Competitor still on the list. So Searcy's attorney, Grant Axon, who is running against the county attorney right now, Spike Wright. Grant Axon asked Judge Schran on Monday to hold McFarland in contempt of court. On the stand, McFarland testified that he absolutely followed the judge's order, but he concedes that Searcy's competitor was only off the approved tow truck list for anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple of hours after the county received the judge's order. McFarland says the county's office attorney, which is represented in court, informed him that they checked with dispatchers and Searcy's competitor has the correct paperwork on file. So McFarland says he was satisfied that he met the judge's requirements. Judge Schran did not make the decision during Monday's hearing. He's given Gallatin County until Friday to provide more documentation. Then he'll allow Searcy's side to respond. So it could be a couple weeks before there's a ruling. Judge Executive McFarland and county attorneys declined to speak on camera with Fox 19 while the judge is considering on how to rule. So a little bit about some recent history of Gallatin County, right? So let's go back really far. Richard Yates. Richard Yates is from Gallatin County, right? So Richard Yates is an important person from Gallatin County. And who is Richard Yates? Richard Yates is one of Abraham Lincoln's most trusty sidekicks. He was one of his biggest advisors. And he was born in Warsaw. So we have a hero. You know, we got somebody that we can actually look at and say he came out of Warsaw and he did something big. He became the governor of Illinois. Right? So he's not like a John Taylor, a Baptist preacher who has plantation and all these slaves, but he's actually anti-slavery. He's very much against it. Being on the bank of the river, you know, it's a state that agrees with slavery as a whole, but being by the river, it's right close, you know, to a free state of Indiana. And so there would have been an underground railroad network that would have been going through Warsaw too. So we have countercurrents. We have countercurrents. There's slavery, but then there's anti-slavery. There's John G. Fee in Berea. There's Muhammad Ali. We got lots of countercurrents. So who's Richard Yates? He's the governor of Illinois during the Civil War and has been considered the greatest war governor during that period. When the war began, Governor Yates sent more troops to aid the Union than any other state. He also represented Illinois in the United States House of Representatives and a U.S. Senator. He was born in Warsaw, Kentucky, moved his family in Illinois in 1831. So he was born in 1815. So he was 31. He was 16 is when he moved. So for the first 16 years of his life, come up out of Warsaw, Kentucky. Studied at Miami University, did this, did that. So yeah, he sent more troops into the Civil War, provided more troops, was for the Union, for Lincoln, against slavery. Richard Yates, badass, come out of Warsaw. So you should know him. You should know him. There's a panic in Owen County. The start year is 1861. So in 1861, there's a panic. And a messenger from Owen County arrived in Frankfort on May 10th, 1861. Messengers notifying the governor that 300 to 400 African Americans had armed themselves and they formed a company. 1861. So that's right at the beginning of the Civil War. So black folks are organizing themselves, and 300 to 400 African Americans armed themselves and they're ready to stand up. The telegraph lines had been cut. The messenger said that when whites attempted to disarm the African Americans, several men were killed. So they tried to say, hey, you can't have guns, and they shot them. Messenger also arrived in Indiana with the story that African American insurrection had occurred in Owen and Gallatin counties. It said that 2 or 3 white men were leading the African Americans. Troops in both Kentucky and Indiana were put on standby. Following days reported that a woman had seen 2 African Americans with guns and notified her minister, who in turn had sounded the alarm. Story created a panic in Boone County. So this is reported Negro insurrection, right? 1861, May 10th. Page 1. Also the reported Negro insurrection in Owen County, Kentucky, by the Daily Times. So there was a panic. There was a scare. You know, 300 to 400 black folks had armed themselves right at the beginning of the American Civil War. So, you know, that's some anti-racism. And also said that 2 or 3 white men were leading the men, right? So we're leading the folks. And good. This is a good thing. In the American Civil War, you wanted the black folks to be armed. They need to get free, and really only with a gun. By gunpoint is how they was enslaved. So guns have been pointed at them the whole time, and that's their only defense. And self-defense is intelligence. So yeah. So in 1861, there was a panic of a Negro insurrection, right? Then you have so not only, there's several lynchings that had happened in Gallatin County too, in Warsaw, and not only do they could say that the black French has been French, and his wife was hung, and so was Abijah Gridley, of Gridley Hill. So the black Frenches were lynched, and so was the black man Abijah Gridley. But you also had a race war. A race war had happened, and it was out of Harrison and Clotter's history, A New History of Kentucky. They said a band of 500 whites in Gallatin County, for example, forced hundreds of blacks to flee across the river. Hundreds of blacks. So this is about 500 whites got together and told the blacks, hundreds of blacks, to go across the river. Were they swimming across the river? How did they do that? Did they have to go to the bridge? Like the actual details of this. And that a race riot, that it really wasn't like black versus white. It was basically a bunch of white people just going into the black neighborhoods and just burning it down, torturing, just treating the fucking black people like shit. In Tulsa, Oklahoma. There is in 1919. There was one in Corbin, Kentucky, and there's about 300 blacks, and they just sent them. They were working there on the railroads, and they sent them on the train and sent them out. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, there was a race riot, and they was actually even dropping bombs from planes at that time. So we're talking about terrorism. They're terrorizing their own people, and that's straight up terrorism. So whites in northern Kentucky were determined to force blacks to move elsewhere, even though the number of African Americans living there was relatively small in comparison with the black population of the rest of the state. About a year after the close of the American Civil War, 1866, you had a large band of whites in Warsaw began whipping blacks, stealing their property, and ordering them to leave. So just, it's a race riot, just fucking violence, just, the exact same as in Corbin and in Tulsa. You had whites that was whipping them. They were whipping them. They were stealing property, right? A bunch of thieves, and then they ordered them to leave, right? They were hitting them, beating them up, taking their things, property, right? And then they ordered them to leave. The Freedmen Bureau agent J.J. Landrum, unable to prevent the violence, reported some 200 Negroes have been forced across the Ohio River above this place today. Others are preparing to leave for fear of other abuses. So 200 black folks had to go swim across the river in order to escape the Ku Klux Klan, or the fucking ex-Confederates, who was all pissed off that they had lost the Civil War, so they wanted to. And this is Kentucky. Kentucky is known to be Union during the Civil War and becoming Confederate after the Civil War. So after the Civil War, you have all these white supremacists just fucking taking over everything. So even though we was on the right side, even though we fought with Lincoln, we didn't stick with Lincoln. We didn't stick with America. We had like some nostalgic Confederate feelings. A lot of Confederates got into office. I know that happened even here in Louisville, like till 1920. The Confederates ran Louisville, for 60 years after the American Civil War, the fourth actually white man Civil War for black people land, I guess. So a second letter describing the situation in Warsaw, Landrum concluded that only by using the blue coats, Union soldiers, would the outrages end. So they needed soldiers. The report from another bureau agent in August 1867 confirmed that blacks are still being ousted in northern Kentucky. So this race war was going on for several years. August 1867. So it wasn't just a race riot incident. It didn't just happen one time. It was basically a systematic, continued intimidation. You better do as the fuck as we say. And they weren't just going after black folks. They were also going after white radicals who thought that black folks were equal to them. So they're still being ousted. In a recent tour made by Captain Graham through Kenton, Boone, and Grant counties, he found that the blacks were very much excited. In many instances, they left their homes in the country and they came to Covington. They alleged that since the election, they've been told that they're all going to be re-enslaved again. So the election, that would be Johnson, right? Andrew Johnson got in there, and he was for the poor whites and basically just undid all fucking Abraham Lincoln's work. Because of Andrew Johnson, the Reconstruction efforts failed. 1877, right? So there was a period in America when there was a shining moment, right? In South Carolina, the majority of the legislatures there were actually black, so black folks were able to band together and they was able to control one legislature. But after that, everybody started getting scared. Then you had the D.W. Griffin's A Birth of a Nation came out, and that's Woodrow Wilson said it was like writing history with lightning, because once you give black people freedom, then they was going to get power and enslave the whites. That's what they was going to happen. That story's been coming around a long time. I haven't heard somebody out of Subway in Warsaw say this, and it's total bullshit.